We're waiting for check.
Yes, check. Hello, welcome. Hi.
Just in time for presentation.
Has stopped exchanging gifts for Christmas. Some people don't get it. But this friend, she goes, don't be mad at me, I got you something for Christmas. She's like, no, I saw this and it just spoke to me.
Okay, we are live, folks. Live on Instagram.
Okay, hello Instagram, how are you? Hi Susanna, I know you're watching. And Andrea, if you're watching too. Hi. Anyway, my name is Martha Capo. I write under Martha Kirby Capo. I'm a Llewellyn author. And my co-author and I, Vinnie Higginbotham, wrote a book called Thrifty Witchery. It was out in April, and I forgot to bring them. But if you want a signed copy, just come and find me, and we can, Zelle me $15, and I will mail you a signed copy of the book. I can't believe I forgot. I just can't believe I forgot it. So I'm going to start with my goat, because that's how I start everything. As Birch said, it's not a Martha Capo presentation without the goat. So the goat has screamed, and now I can start. One of the things that we talked about in Thrifty Witchery, and this is really the thing I'm going to concentrate on today, because it's fun and it's interactive. This is a workshop that I've given at several festivals this past year. It's the last time I'm doing this workshop for the year. And everybody gets a prize. Everybody gets like a little freebie thing that they get to take home. The main thing that Vinnie and I were writing about was that you don't really have to use money for your everyday witchcraft. You can save that money for like some really spiffy things that you want to have for special. But a lot of times when people are new in the craft, they feel like, well, I've got to go have this thing, and I've got to go have that thing, and I can't do it if I don't have this thing. And really, what you have in your pantry and around your house, you can use that. I mean, if you think about it, I had somebody tell me once that she uses dryer lint as a fire starter, because when you think about what comes through that dryer, it's skin flakes. It's pieces of your family that you're kind of filtering out. And so that has your magical DNA in it. Your magical essence is already there. It's just being able to look at things with a witch's eyes and see them so that you can use them for a purpose that maybe they were not originally intended for, but works for you. And back in the day, whether or not somebody self-identified as a witch or whatever, but back in the day, people didn't just go trot down to the Costco or run over to the Publix and grab something because they needed it. They used what was around their house. And it was not quite such a consumer-driven project. And of course, as witchcraft and magic has kind of, they're having a moment these days, what's going to happen is that we're going to have big corporations come in and say, I can make some money on that. And so now, we have we have a lot of kits out there, and Instagram is out there, no offense Instagram, and TikTok, which I am not a part of because I am old. And
really
frightened.
Old.
Frightened.
Not really old. Just getting started.
But there's a real kind of look to witchcraft now that people, again, coming into the craft might think, well, I have to look like that. And then now, all of a sudden, we've got this envy thing going. Well, my altar doesn't look as perfect as that one does. Well, my clothes aren't as lovely as those are. Well, my makeup doesn't look right like that. And again, these are all mindsets that are based on lack. I lack something, and I need to go and get that thing before I can be powerful in my power. I can really know my power. Witchcraft, for me, is a philosophy of abundance. That we are surrounded by abundance, and I don't have to go out and buy something for me to be powerful in my magic, because it is abundantly in me, it is abundantly around me with whatever is around me. In the book, the first half of it is a lot of metaphysical stuff about self-empowerment, and then wisdom, intuition, and oh my goodness, intention, and what the relationships are between those things and how they work to come bring the stuff that is in you and manifest it and make it real out in the world. The second half of the book has to do with projects that you can do at home. And this is one, Vinny did some, I did some others. This one's one of mine. When you have things around your house like old board games, or word tile divination letter games, word tile formation games. I don't dare say the word that cannot be spoken aloud without paying a royalty to someone. And if you lose letters from that game, or you lose the rack, or you lose the board, you're like, well, crap, I can't use this thing anymore. But you can. You can with leftover letters, and you can do a divination project with this. What we're going to do in a few minutes, we're running a tad bit late, so it's not going to be a full hour for this workshop. I'm going to walk you through how to do a letter tile divination with the letter tiles that you have at home. I want to mention one other thing, is that not only can you use those letter tiles for something else, you can use the boards that you have for old board games, like Sorry, if anybody remembers that game, or any of these things. If you recover those, you can make yourself a nice little divination table, little divination area for your cards. The same thing with if you wanted to do like a giant tarot card to do as a contemplation. I wouldn't print them off of the internet because copyright. But you can do your own drawing of them and mount it on one of those boards and put it up as a decoration. And one other thing I want to touch on is that when we do our homemade things, who's our worst critic? Yourself. So what does that really say about how you think about yourself? I mean, what message are you giving to yourself when you look at something that you spent time thinking about how to make it, you spent time choosing, selecting the materials that you were going to make it with. You put a lot of effort, thought, intention into that project. And when you look at it, the first thing you think is, well, that looks like crap. Why do you do that to yourself? And that's a question not for right now, but to think about as you go about your day. That little voice that's in your head, you got to take care of that, and you can take care of that, but so often we don't. And that's the thing about thrifty witchery. When you look at the salt that you're using from your pantry, and you're like, well, I'd get something better at the magic shop, but I can't afford it, so I guess I'll make this do. Well, what's that going to do to any kind of magic that you do with that? Because now you've said, well, it's not good enough, but I guess I'll use it. You will never be able to form an intention that is going to be robust enough to overcome your bias against using what's around you. And it's not our fault, because we live in a consumer world. We are little consumers. We're raised to be consumers. And that's endemic to our society. So it's really hard to break out of that, but I so strongly encourage you to do that. So that's back to this. What we're going to do here, these are all bags of 25, I would say randomly selected Scrabble, but I could tell you a whole lot more about Scrabble sets than you ever want to know after putting together 55 or so of these kits and using them all summer. What this is that, and the hardest part of it is going to be the very first part. You're going to take these letters, you're going to have them face up, which sounds counterintuitive, and that's why it's hard. Because you need to make sure that you get at least 2 vowels. It doesn't matter, but you need to get at least 2 vowels. The other part that is a little bit of a stretch for some people is that try very hard not to pick out a word that you see immediately. Try very, very hard to kind of blur your vision and stop your mind from jumping, and just pick out letters that call to you for some reason. You're going to pick out about 5, 7, 8 letters, somewhere along in there. Because if you pick out 12 letters, you're going to make so many words that you will never stop. It's too many. Just pick out 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9. Make sure a couple of them are vowels. And then that's what you're going to work with. And before we get to picking out the letters, what I'm going to want everybody to do is to think about a question that they have on their heart. And it doesn't have to be a life-changing question like, should I cut my leg off? It can be anything. I had somebody who did this workshop.
One more leg.
I had somebody who did this workshop. I did this workshop with in Mystic South, and that person's question was about a car, whether or not to get a new car or something like that. And you'd be surprised how spot on what came up from his unconscious, because that's what you're doing, is you're accessing your unconscious, your subconscious. And as we grab these and take them places, I will repeat again what we're doing. You're going to make about, I don't know, I'll give you about a minute, 2 minutes or so to make as many words as you can with the letters that you have. And you're going to write them down. You have a little pencil and all of these. And write down as many words as you want to. Then when we're done with that, I want you to go back through and look at the words that you've written and see if any of them particularly call to you, particularly with regard to your question. So when you first write down your words, it's just all going to be just any words that you can find. And you're going to go back through, we're going to circle the words, no matter how nutty they are, that might have something that call to you, that call to you. I'll do this with you so that you can kind of have a model of what goes on. What you will find is that the words that you end up with are going to give you some insight on the question that you have, without you trying to answer the question in your top brain. Your lizard brain's going to be going. And then if you need further discernment, I've got some major arcana of some tarot decks up here. And you can do a little numerology with this, because you're going to count the numbers that are on each of the letters and see what number you come up with. And see what that further informs the question that you ask yourself. Is that clear as mud?
Yes.
Of course it is. All right. So, anybody who wants to participate, come up here, get a bag. It's yours to take home with you afterwards. Find a place to write, like a writing surface, if you can. And also a place you need to be able to spread your letters out. So get a piece of paper and get a baggie. And then find a place where you can get a piece of paper. And then find a place where you can spread, notebook, you can do that. And then,
Can I get one for me and my girl?
sure, get them, sure. Here, you got it.
We have notebooks for you to take your notes with. Perfect.
Try to find a hard surface to spread your tiles out on.
If anyone wants to use one of the coloring books, we got 3 of the coloring books.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
Good. Got my tile. Ready to go.
So when you find a hard surface to put your letters on, be sure to spread them out face up.
Can we grab any of the Arcana cards?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
Not quite yet.
Do you want some of the coloring books?
All right. Ooh, I got a blank. 1 or 2 of you will have blanks, which is great, because boy, can you make a lot of words with a blank. All right. Has everybody got a place to spread out their Scrabble tiles?
They'll be back.
Yes, no?
I wanted to make sure everybody had before
Yeah, I'm down to my dregs. You wouldn't believe how many Scrabble tile sets.
7 or 9 without looking at it.
Try not to look at the letters, but I do want you to have the tiles face up, because you have to have at least 2 vowels, okay? And then so first thing, I want everybody to think about what a question is in their brain. Just think about a question. It doesn't have to be a big one. It can be, why does my sister hate me? Or it can be, which is, I guess, a big question. Or it could be, what's holding me back at work? Or it could be, why am I always out of bread? You know, it could be anything. So take a few minutes. I'm going to be quiet for a couple of seconds. I want you to really think about a question that you'd like to kind of have some more insight on. When you have that question in your brain, kind of in your heart, and you've kind of got it going, I want you to close your eyes, and I just want you to lay your hands over your tiles, move the tile letters around, keep your eyes closed, and really think about your question. Try to feel the heat coming through your hands with that question. When you feel like you've kind of communicated that question with these tiles, open your eyes, pick out 5, 7, or 9, somewhere along in there, tiles, and move them to one side. Make sure you get 2 vowels. Try not to make any words while you're looking at the tiles. Just try to see just letters. I picked out 6 tiles. When you guys have got your tiles, now this is where you're going to start just making up words. Not making them up, but spelling out words. And write out as many as you want. Don't try to make sense of them, just write the words that you can make. Oh, that's interesting.
So write them all down? Yeah, write down all the words you need.
Shh, girl. When you get to about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if you can make more than 7 words, that's great. If you're having trouble making words, Alba or I can come around and help you find a couple of words. Sometimes it's hard to kind of get that started. So if you're having trouble finding words, raise up your little hand and I'll come around and help you.
What about if you can't spell?
Alba can help. Oh. All right, does everybody have some words written down? No? Hang on a second, let me come over and see what you got.
Exactly, I saw that. I did, I vape. I'm gonna do vape, not yet.
Boy.
7, 9 words, somewhere along in there. Now I want you to go and save those letters off to the side. I always forget that part. And you think I wouldn't after doing this all summer. When you have about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 words, I want you to go back through that list, think about what your question was, and I want you to circle any of the words that you think might have some relationship to the question that you asked. It doesn't have to be every word, but there should be 1 or 2 words that if you think about it, and maybe sideways too. So think of, like, I found the word taro one time, T-A-R-O, which is a fleshy tuber root. And I thought, what in the world does that have to do with my question? But then when I thought about it a little bit further, taro roots, the starch, that's a very nourishing food source, very high in vitamins. And it had to do with my question. So even if it's nuts, if it has something to do, some relationship with your question, circle it. All right, when you've circled about maybe 2 or 3 words or so, kind of look up so I know that you're kind of on board here. Okay. I'm going to tell you my question, and I'm going to tell you what words I was able to form. My question was, is this workshop going to be successful today? Is this workshop successful? Will it be successful? The words that I pulled from my letters was care, like I care about something, cared, car, card, drat, trad, trade, rad, cart, tread, like a stair tread, read, and react. Of all those words, I circled 4. Care, trad, tread, and react. I feel like those connect to my question about whether or not this workshop was going to be successful, because I care about the workshop, so probably it's going to be, because I care about what I'm doing. Trad is short for traditional. I'm not a traditional witch, and this is not a traditional divination practice. And so I felt like this word connected because it reminded me that even though my way up the stream is not the same as anybody else's way up the stream, it's still valid. It's my tradition. And so that's valid for me. I circled the word tread, T-R-E-A-D, because I'm walking a new path after this workshop is done. I'm not doing this workshop again. I'm doing different ones. I'm developing different ones. But it also reminds me that however I embody my witchcraft in the community, however I present how much connection that I have in my community, I need to walk my walk. I need to tread my tread. I need to be authentically who I am, and share some things that may sound loopy, like this divination way, but it's who I am, and I care about it, and that's part of my walk, my tread. Then I had react as the last one, and that called me to be mindful that this particular workshop was one of the first ones that I can call completely my own. I made this divination thing up. I saw it through, I got it published, and I've been presenting it. And I need to be mindful that when I put it to bed, that I don't just pack it up. I need to react to how I have grown in being more public in my witchcraft, and in being more public in sharing what I think, original thought, what I think with my community, whether I know you or not. So that's how that worked for me. And I don't know if anybody else wants to share how any of that worked for them or not. If you do, great. I'd love to hear your story. Yes?
All right. My question was, I have a cat who has been missing. She's an outdoor cat. She's been missing for little over a month.
Oh, wow.
It's not the first time she's done this.
Yeah.
So my question was, is she safe? And underlying that is, will she come home?
Sure.
The words I formed with my letters were fab, hi, say, they, pay, fay, fay. A-Y-E-Y. Yes, bye, as in ta-ta. Ape, pea, sap, phi, safe, base, keys, peasy, and easy.
Wow. So what did you circle?
Yes, safe, and base.
Oh, wow, because it's her home base.
Yes. So,
Wow.
and I have chills.
So you're feeling much more confident that she'll
yes.
find it back to her home base.
Yes.
Well, I'm so glad that worked
Thank
well
you.
for you. That's great. That gives me goosebumps too. Anybody else want to share theirs? Okay, if you don't. The other part is I want you to go now and look at the letters that you used for, I'm going to use my letters for tread because I feel like tread was my strongest word. Look at your words. And you can do it for more than one, but just pick one, the strongest one. And I want you to add up the numbers that you see on your letter tiles. So when I did tread, and that's that whole thing about walking my path out in the open, the number I came up with was 5. 5 is the Hierophant. So if we think about that, my question had to do about how am I going to be more public and authentic and, put on my big girl panties and do this out in public. The Hierophant is a teaching card in the major arcana. Now, frequently it will present orthodoxy, and I don't do reversals with this. Upright, it generally is about orthodoxy. Reversed is generally about not orthodoxy, heterodoxy. But there's a real teaching element. In this particular tarot deck, she's drawn the Buddha. And so for me, this makes sense. This gives me further insight about the teaching aspect of public witchcraft. You know, that yes, you're going to change kind of what your workshops are going to be, but in essence, it's still teaching. So that works for me. Does anybody else have like a number or letters or anything that, yes?
7.
7. I should know this, and I never do. Oh, the Chariot, and that's my card too. I should know. Chariot is about action, swift action. It's so interesting in the Chariot because in a traditional deck you'll have like a dark steed and a white steed, and they're kind of going off in slightly different directions. So they're not really unified in straight ahead movement. There has to be an element of control from the charioteer. And in this is one of my favorite decks. In this deck, she has the charioteer, doesn't even have reins on the 2 steeds that are pulling the chariot. So to me that suggests strength of will, that she controls the forward movement of the chariot and the direction. She's got to get them aligned and going in direction through strength of will. And you'll also see that this particular charioteer is aiming an arrow off to the side toward a target. So let's think about that. Now you've got all this movement. You got to figure out how to make these steeds go in the right way. You don't have any reins for them, and you're really concentrating on something way over here. So there's a trust element in that. That things are in motion, things are really going, and you've got to be able to trust your ability to subconsciously maintain at least a little bit of control, even if it's just to stay on the forward movement. But consciously, you have got a different target. And so then there's all this movement, and so that means you're going to have to adjust for that target. A lot of action in this. Does that make sense for your...
Yeah.
Good, I'm glad. I'm always surprised. I don't know why I should be surprised, but I'm always surprised when it makes sense. Anybody else?
4.
Beg pardon? A 4? Oh yeah, the Emperor. I love this card. The Emperor is about foundation. And if you think about 4, 4 is a nice, big, steady foundation. In this particular deck, she's drawn somebody like from Roman times. There's an aqueduct in the background, and he's got plans. Or they, I guess I should say they have plans for that aqueduct. The Emperor is a card of the earth. So like when you have the High Priestess and the Magician, that's all up there. When you have the Empress and the Emperor, that's down here. The thing about the Emperor is that you have to be real meticulous and real damn picky about those foundations. So, I mean, once the Emperor has said, okay, this is how it's going to go, this is the foundation, you don't really get to say, I have an idea, because he's already figured it out. But on the other hand, you have to have a firm foundation in order to be successful in whatever it is you're going to be building on top of it. So it's not, we think about the Emperor as like, boy, is he a lucky person because he's got any kind of food he wants to have. He can wear these fabulous clothes. He can do anything he wants to. But he's also responsible for the infrastructure of the community. And so that requires some sacrifice on his part. And maybe he's not going to be so popular all the time, because he sees the way to do it. He's done his research. He's got the plans. Might be not everybody along with the plan, So there's it's not all aqueducts and hot tubs, Does that make any sense for your question? I'm glad. Somebody over here?
So if you had 2 words,
Okay.
can you add them together to see what that means?
Sure, go ahead.
11.
11. That is justice. I love justice. Justice is a great card. Now, I will say this about justice. Sometimes justice doesn't feel like justice. And when that happens, that's very hard. We always think about justice as these balanced, evenly scales. That assumes that the weight of the matter, the weight of whatever's being weighed, are equal weights, and that the fulcrum is in the center. But that's not how it works in the real world, because sometimes something has more weight than the other thing has. So you have to adjust the fulcrum to make the scales balance. And we don't think about that. We think more in terms of removing things from either saucer, either of the platters. We don't think in terms of shifting the fulcrum, like our inherent point of view. Does that make sense?
A little.
A little bit? Mm-hmm. Well, if you take 11 and you reduce it to 2, then we're up to the High Priestess. And that's another thing you can do if you get a double digit, is reduce it to see if you can get further clarification. Now, you and I both know the High Priestess is all about obscurity, having to really lean into your intuition, having to really kind of trust your gut a little bit, and that can be stressful. That can be really, really stressful. She's got this 2, I think one pillar is Boaz and one is something else on either side. I would say, if it were me, and I am not you, I would say that there is something going on where there needs to be like a sense of fairness at play, or a sense of, I would almost say a sense of justification, maybe. But it is very obscure how that's going to happen, what that's going to look like.
Makes a lot of sense.
Does it? Okay. It's worth doing a reduction. Sometimes if you're not quite sure, to go back through and see if you can reduce it down to something else, because between the 2 of them, that should give you some more clarification. Anybody else?
What would 10 be?
10 is the Wheel of Fortune. Wheel of Fortune! The thing about the Wheel of Fortune, and again, that's a 2-digit one, so what is that going to reduce to? That's going to reduce to the Magician. So let's talk about the Wheel of Fortune first. And that's pretty much of a what goes up must come down, and what goes down is going to eventually go back up again. So there's a cyclical feel to this card. So like if you're on top of the world, everything's going great, you're making rent, your car's doing great, you're getting a raise, blah, 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 blah. Great. may not always be like that because this is just the nature of life. The nature of life is a cycle. We see it all the way around us. It gives hope to the person who's at the bottom of the cycle because it's going to get better eventually. It gives humility to the person who's at the top of the cycle because you can't always assume that it's always going to be that way. Something might come up and you need to prepare yourself so that you're emotionally and mentally stable enough to handle it. Now, again, this reduces to one. One is the magician. And that is an interesting reduction to me because the magician is about the person who's in front of the table and all the tools that they need are on the table. And you'll see a representation of every one of the suits of the deck on that table. And the magician is the one who chooses how they're going to mix those elements together to achieve whatever it is the magician wants to achieve. So to me, and I am not you, it says the Wheel of Fortune, you're not going to be able to do a whole lot about that. But you can do a lot about yourself when you think about the reduction to the magician and do what you can to make yourself the most flexible tool, not that you're a tool, but the most flexible conduit of your magic that you possibly can. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yay, I'm glad. How much time do we have, Carl?
You're 36 minutes.
I've got 8 more minutes because I'm ending at 2, right?
Yeah.
All right, I've got about 8 more minutes. Anybody else want anything, or we can break early? Yes.
14.
14. Is that the lovers? No, that's temperance. That's interesting. So temperance is about modulating extremes. You have I think in the original Rider-Waite Coleman Smith deck, you have somebody who's got like 1 foot in a pond, and they've got a pitcher, and they're kind of pouring things back and forth. And so there's like an admixture, I guess, if you're going to use like a science term for it. It's trying to find that sweet spot. But in order to find that sweet spot, you have to deal with the liminal, like the stuff at the edge, the stuff that's too cold and the stuff that's too hot. And your sweet spot may not be tepid. You know what I mean? Like, I like a hot tub a darn good bit hotter than a lot of other people like. That's my sweet spot. That isn't for a lot of people. So whatever your sweet spot is, that you're trying to mix these different elements together, these different components together, that's kind of like for you to kind of decide. When we reduce that, we come to 5 again, and I believe that's the Hierophant. There's a teaching component of that. And I would say there's also a gathering component to that, much like there is in temperance, because you're gathering together these different elements, these different qualities, and trying to mix them together. And a teacher gathers from different sources, does a lot of research, figures out how to teach, what to teach, how to teach it, who to teach it to. There's a lot of I think it's a very creative number pairing, and really empowering, because it's like you've got to find your own balance is, and then you've got to turn around, and now you're going to get balance to other people as you teach. Does that make any sense?
It does. In a sideways sort of way, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Okay. I always love it when it works. I had one person when I gave this workshop, and he said, "Well, I don't have any vowels," which I had not told people. Pick a vowel. Until I was like, this dude is like, "Well, I don't have any vowels." I said, "Well, what do you think is going to happen?" Pick a couple, just 2. Anybody else? Any numbers? Anything? 9. 9 is, I love 9. 9 is the Hermit. The Hermit is, to me, a very liminal card. The Hermit has a choice. The Hermit can come out of the cave or come out of the enclosed space with his lantern, knowledge, some people say, and come out through the darkness and the isolation and show that knowledge to other people. Or the Hermit can just get on back in the cave and stay there, because that's what that Hermit wants to do. There's a real sense of, I kind of think of it like those old mystics that used to like get up in the mountains and just kind of stay up there. And if you wanted to find out something from those mystics, you had to go up to the mountain. They didn't come down from the mountain. You had to go up there. And I think that there's a kind of a part of that with the Hermit. The Hermit is, I think, a very introspective card. I think it is. I wouldn't say someone who stays hidden in a negative way, like I'm skulking about or something like that, but needs solitude to be able to do that higher order thinking, that higher level thinking that they have to do. They can't have the distractions of all this other stuff, earthly stuff. But it doesn't mean they never come out of the cave. They come out when they're ready. And they may talk to they'll talk to who they want to talk to. But then after that, they go back to the cave. They're very happy in the cave. Does that make any sense? Mm-hmm. Yay. And how am I for time?
8. Somebody.
8 is, why don't I know these things off the top of my head? That's my question. Strength. I know that. Strength is an interesting card. Typically you'll see like a woman. She don't have much clothes on. She doesn't have any armor on. She doesn't have any kind of a weapon. And there's a lion. And she generally has like her hand around the lion's big sharp teeth, or maybe a hand on the mane. And the whole idea about 8 is that you overcome through gentleness, that you persevere through gentleness. But that means you have to have a lot of courage. And when you turn 8 on the side, it's also an infinity symbol, which you may or may not find fascinating, I do. There's a real juxtaposition of terms in 8, because who wants to come up to a lion? Who wants to come up to a lion? So something very fierce, very frightening, very, very powerful, and yet with gentleness, she's able to approach that lion, and they establish enough of a connection, enough of a communication, where she can put her hand in the lion's mouth. To me, it's a very intuitive card, another intuitive card, and counterintuitive too. Because you would think that you would have to come in there and like a Las Vegas show and crack the whip or something. But that's not the way to go. Oftentimes 8 will show, this way that you think is a real direct way to deal with whatever the issue is, may not be the best way to deal with that issue. Maybe it needs to be come at sideways, a little bit sideways, so that you're not so threatening. If you threaten the lion's going to rear back and threaten back at you. But if you come in and you're trying to demonstrate to the lion that you are not a threat, you're not a threat. You just want to be able to mix energies, share energy. That gets you further. Does that help at all? Yes, no, maybe so.
Yes.
Oh, you're over here.
No,
Okay.
it was very nice.
Oh, I'm glad. Yay. All right, I think I'm done.
Yep.
You get to keep your. Goodbye, Susanna. Goodbye, Andrea. You get to keep your little baggies. Thanks. And I think they may be feeding us after this, so yay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martha. I think we have food now.
Hey.
I think food is due.